All right, let's dive in, shall we? Today, it's the Sean Diddy Combs saga. And you know we're doing this deep dive just for you, because you've been keeping up with it all. Lawsuits, accusations, even a docuseries in the works. It's a lot. We're going to try and sift through it all.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, we're talking accusations that could really impact his career, his whole fortune. It's not just like typical celebrity gossip. This is serious stuff.
Yeah, you said it. And it goes way back too, right? Decades of this stuff swirling around. It's kind of hard to even keep track.
It is.
So let's start with where things stand right now. Big news, obviously, is that Combs is, well, he's in jail.
Right, and this is big. He's actually awaiting trial on a federal sex trafficking indictment.
That's right.
And that whole thing comes from a lawsuit that Rodney Little Rod Jones filed back in February of last year. And, you know, Jones's accusations, those are a big deal.
Yeah.
Because he's not just talking about isolated incidents, he's alleging a pattern of exploitation, like a full-blown sex trafficking venture, he calls it.
And legally speaking, that term, sex trafficking venture, that's a whole other level.
It is.
To be considered sex trafficking under U.S. law, you have to prove force or fraud or coercion was used to make someone engage in, commercial sex acts.
Right.
And if the victim is underage, any involvement in commercial sex, that's automatically considered trafficking, no matter what. So Jones's accusation is that Combs wasn't just like engaging in assault here and there, but that he was running an operation.
Exactly. And according to Jones, this operation involved Combs' son, employees, the whole thing. Force, coercion, getting women, including some who were underage, into sexual acts for money. He even alleges ties to powerful figures in, different industries.
Wow. So yeah, this isn't just like a casting couch kind of situation. This is something else entirely.
Right.
And on top of all that, we've got these docuseries coming out. The Fall of Diddy, that one premieres on January 27th on Investigation Discovery. And then 50 Cent is producing one too. Diddy, The Making of a Bad Boy. That one's supposed to be on Netflix sometime soon.
It'll be interesting to see how the filmmakers handle the legal side of all of this.
Right.
I mean, they'll have court documents, potentially interviews with accusers, people close to Combs. It's complicated.
And with 50 Cent involved, he and Combs have that history. It's going to add another layer to it all.
Yeah.
A whole lot of scrutiny, probably some drama too.
Yeah.
But okay, before we get ahead of ourselves with the docuseries, let's step back and look at the accusations themselves.
Right.
Get it all out on the table.
Absolutely. So, beyond Jen's case, in September of 24, Thalia Graves filed a lawsuit claiming Combs raped her back in 2001. And then there's Cassie Ventura, Combs' ex-girlfriend. She filed a lawsuit in November of 23, $30 million lawsuit. Years of abuse, she alleges, including being raped in 2018.
And Brianna Banganai Bongolan. Her lawsuit says Combs assaulted her and held her over a 17th story balcony back in 2016. It's hard to ignore the fact that we're hearing from both men and women, some anonymous, some not, but all with stories stretching back decades.
That's what's really striking, right? Like, it's not just a sudden burst of accusations. We're talking about claims going back to the early 90s.
Right.
Like that alleged incident at the charity basketball game back in 91, where a woman, she's remained anonymous, but claims she was assaulted in Combs' dressing room.
And LaTroya Grayson. Remember her? She talked about that incident in 2006. Won a radio station contest to go to one of Combs' parties, and she woke up in the hospital. No memory of what happened.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in.
It is.
And of course, we have to acknowledge that Combs has denied any wrongdoing, all of it.
Right.
His attorney has said, point blank, that Combs has never assaulted anyone.
Yeah.
They're confident that the truth will come out through the judicial process.
Of course, legally speaking, he is innocent until proven guilty. We have to say that. But, you can't help but wonder when you see this many accusations from so many different people over such a long period. Is there something more to this?
Right. And that's where attorney Tony Busby comes in. He's representing a lot of Combs' accusers, and he's been very vocal. He wants to expose what he calls many powerful people and many dirty secrets. You get the feeling he thinks there's a much bigger story here, and he doesn't seem to be afraid to make some waves.
Yeah, Busby's known for taking on those big, high-profile cases. Having him involved adds a whole other level of intrigue to this whole situation.
Yeah.
But let's not forget about the impact this is all having on Combs' fortune, his money.
Oh, yeah. Back in 2019, Forbes estimated his wealth at $740 million. Today, That estimate has plummeted to $400 million.
Wow.
Legal battles, all this bad publicity, the potential damage to his brand, it all adds up.
That's a huge drop, even for someone used to, living a lavish lifestyle.
It is.
Okay, so let's really get into some of the accusations. Let's start with that sex trafficking venture allegation from Rodney Jones, the one that landed Combs in jail.
All right. So Jones's lawsuit, it claims that Combs, along with his son and employees, they used force, threats, even coercion to recruit women, some underage, into performing sexual acts for money. He even suggests those who went along with it, they were rewarded with business connections, access to Combs' network.
It's a pretty disturbing picture he paints. Implying a culture of complicity, silence within Combs' inner circle.
Right.
And we have to keep saying these are just allegations at this point.
Absolutely. Combs' attorneys have denied these allegations completely, called them baseless and without merit.
So we've set the stage here. The timeline, the legal battle that's brewing, the impact all of this is having on Combs' life and his fortune. But there are some specific cases, even more shocking ones, that we need to get into to really understand the scope of what we're dealing with here.
Yeah, for sure. And those cases bring up some important questions about power, celebrity culture, and how we even figure out the truth in a world where there's so much media and everyone's got a different story.
Okay, so we've kind of laid out like the main points of the accusations against Sean Diddy Combs. But let's zoom in a bit. There are a few specific cases that really jump out. One that comes to mind is Brianna Bongolan's lawsuit. Her claims are especially disturbing, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Bongolan alleges that back in 2016, Combs assaulted her physically at Cassie Ventura's apartment, actually. And we're talking serious stuff. He went as far as she says he dangled her over a 17th story balcony.
Oh.
Yeah, it's intense. She also says he slammed her into patio furniture. That level of violence, if true, it's incredibly concerning.
It is. And her lawsuit goes into detail about an alleged history of abuse. She claims that Combs choked her, punched her, even threatened her life. She's not just describing one incident, she's talking about a pattern.
Right. And the lawsuit brings Combs' son, Justin, into it as well. Bongolan says Justin witnessed the assault and didn't do anything to stop it.
It just adds another layer of complexity to the whole thing. The power dynamics. Was there awareness of this alleged behavior within Combs' inner circle? All of that. There's another accusation we need to talk about, and this one's particularly sensitive, serious stuff. An anonymous woman alleges that Combs and Jay-Z raped her when she was just 13 years old.
Yeah. This alleged assault, this goes back to 2000. The woman claims it happened at an MTV Video Music Awards after party. She says she was repeatedly roped by both Combs and Jay-Z.
And both Combs and Jay-Z have, through their attorneys, very strongly denied this.
They have. Jay-Z's attorney called the accusation patently false, a blatant attempt to extract an undeserved financial windfall.
But the accuser's attorney, that's Tony Busby. He's standing by his client. He's not backing down.
He's not. In this case, it really highlights just how challenging it can be to deal with accusations from the past, especially when you don't have physical evidence.
Yeah.
It often comes down to he said, she said. And the legal system, they have to be so careful in weighing the credibility of both sides.
I remember reading that there were some inconsistencies, in this case about the timeline, the location.
There were.
But Busby says those inconsistencies are minor, and they don't invalidate his client's claims. So we'll see how that unfolds in court.
We will. And, regardless of what happens legally, these kinds of allegations, they have such a massive impact on public perception.
They do.
Combs spent years building this image, this successful businessman, cultural icon, all of that. Now that's all been tarnished.
It makes you think about celebrity, that whole world, the power dynamic.
It does.
Combs' career, it was built on charisma, a very specific public persona.
Yeah.
And now that's being challenged in a very, very public and damaging way.
It is. And the financial hit is real too.
Yeah.
We talked about his net worth declining, but there's also potential loss of future earnings to consider. Brands might distance themselves, partnerships could dissolve. His ability to get those big money deals, that could be gone.
Yeah, it's a stark reminder, isn't it, that your reputation, your public image, those are valuable, but also fragile. But amidst all of this, there's a bigger conversation happening too, right?
Yeah.
The hashtag #MeToo movement has empowered so many victims to come forward and share their stories, often against very powerful people.
Absolutely. In the Combs case, regardless of the outcome, it's become part of that cultural shift. We're looking at how we view and respond to allegations of sexual misconduct, especially when there are these power imbalances involved.
And it's shining a light on the importance of accountability. It doesn't matter how much money you have, your status, your fame, no one is above the law.
Exactly. And that brings us to another really explosive allegation, one that ties into one of the most enduring mysteries, I think, in hip-hop history, the death of Tupac Shakur.
This is where things get really interesting and honestly a bit murky. In October of 24, a woman named Ashley Parham filed a lawsuit claiming that Combs was involved in Tupac's murder back in 1996. Parham's lawsuit, it alleges that she was gang raped by Combs and his accomplices after she told him, and this was during a FaceTime call, that she believed he was responsible for Tupac's death. So she's claiming that the assault was retaliation.
Wow. That's a huge claim. It directly links Combs to one of the most, if not the most, infamous unsolved crimes in music history.
It does, and a lot of people are skeptical, obviously. There's no evidence yet to back it up, and Combs has denied any involvement in Tupac's death. Very strongly denied it.
Right. This accusation really shows how quickly things can turn into conspiracy theories.
They can?
Especially when you're dealing with high-profile figures and events that are still unresolved.
Right. You've got people who are convinced Combs is the mastermind behind it all, and then others who think he's being targeted unfairly, maybe even as part of a bigger conspiracy to bring him down.
It's a good reminder that public opinion can be swayed so easily, and it's easy for that line between fact and speculation to get blurred, especially now, with social media.
It is. But let's not lose track of the core issue here. The allegations of sexual assault, the abuse.
Right.
These are serious accusations with very real consequences for the victims.
Absolutely.
No matter who the accused is, we can't forget about the voices and experiences of those who've come forward.
You're right. And we also have to be mindful of the human cost. These aren't just abstract legal battles. They represent real pain, trauma for people involved.
So we've looked at a few specific cases, each one with its own complexities and implications. What's really interesting to me is how this goes beyond just a typical celebrity scandal.
It really does. It's celebrity culture, legal battles, social movements, enduring mysteries. It's everything. And it's all happening under the watchful eye of the whole world. Everyone's watching, waiting for the next bit of information, ready to jump to conclusions.
So we've spent all this time, looking at these accusations against Sean Diddy Combs, the potential fallout, the whole cultural context. But with everything still so uncertain, I'm really interested in, the legal strategies at play here. What are we going to see as these lawsuits, the federal indictment, all of that? What happens next?
Oh, it's going to be a fascinating legal battle. Combs is up against some pretty serious charges, potentially life-altering consequences. His defense team, they're going to have to be on their A game.
Yeah, what kind of tactics do you think we might see from them, especially with these accusations being so complex? I'm going back decades.
Well, I think a big focus is going to be on the credibility of the accusers, trying to find inconsistencies in their stories, gaps in their memories, even suggesting they have ulterior motives for coming forward.
Do you think they might try to portray Combs as a victim here, like a smear campaign, especially with 50 Cent involved, with the docuseries and all?
Oh, absolutely. They could argue that Combs is being targeted by people who have, axes to grind, people who stand to gain financially from his downfall.
But wouldn't that be risky? What if the accusers seem believable? Their stories resonate with the public.
Yeah, there's always risk in any legal strategy. But remember, the defense, they don't have to prove Combs' innocence. They just have to create enough doubt, enough for a jury to question things.
That's true. And then there's the whole court of public opinion, right?
Yeah.
Even if Combs is found not guilty, can he ever really escape the shadow of these accusations?
It's hard to say. Public perception is powerful, and these types of allegations, they tend to stick around, no matter what the courts decide.
Right. And speaking of things that might stick around, what about the docuseries? How do you think those might factor in? Could they help Combs or hurt him?
The docuseries, they're a wild card for sure. If they uncover new evidence, or have compelling interviews with accusers, it could really make things tough for the defense.
But on the flip side, if people see the docuseries as biased or exploitative, they could end up generating sympathy for Combs.
Exactly. The filmmakers have to walk a tightrope. They have to maintain their journalistic integrity, but also present a narrative that people will actually want to watch.
Yeah. It feels like we're at this point where we're just waiting to see what happens next. The legal battles, the docuseries, public opinion. It's all connected.
It is. And what's so interesting to me is how this goes beyond your average celebrity scandal. It's forcing us to think about power, accountability, how we find truth when there's so much information, so many different perspectives.
Right. So as we wrap this up, what do you think are the main takeaways for people who've been following this?
Well, we have to remember, above all else, that Combs is innocent until proven guilty. The legal process has to play out. We can't make judgments before that.
Yeah. But we also can't dismiss the seriousness of what he's being accused of and how all of this has already affected his life, his career.
Right. This whole case, it sparked a really important conversation about believing survivors, holding powerful people responsible for their actions. It reminds us that no one is above the law. Money, status, none of that matters.
And the future is uncertain, but one thing is for sure, this isn't over. The legal battles will go on, the docuseries will air, people will keep talking.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So stay informed, be critical of what you see and hear, and come to your own conclusions.
We've really gone deep on this one. Accusations, denials, legal strategies, the whole cultural conversation.
Yeah.
But as we've seen, this story is a reflection of some bigger issues in society. It makes us think about power, about accountability, about the pursuit of justice.
And it leaves us with more questions than answers, which sometimes that's okay. Truth can be hard to find, and justice, it doesn't always come quickly.
It doesn't. So stay tuned. This is a story that's going to keep unfolding. We'll be here breaking it down, offering insights, encouraging you to think about it all. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.